Just a quick one before we get into this episode. If you're in the UK and you use supplements, I'd highly recommend checking out Reflex Nutrition, where they're giving up to 40% on all their range if you use the code PTRNT at checkout. I've been using Reflex for nearly a decade, with their microwave being one of my favorite whey proteins. It's grass-fed, hormone-free, and digests so well compared to most on the market. Check out their full supplement range, including all your transformation basics and plant-based alternatives on reflexnutrition.com and use the code PTRNT at checkout for up to 40% off. It's not long left now till the new book, Transform Your Body, Transform Your Life, is released. Sunday 24th of May is the big day, and I can't wait for you to get your copy. In the meantime, you can download the first chapter for free by going to www.rntfitness.com/book. Exciting times ahead, and I look forward to hearing what you think. The reward phase, where you're in the shape of your life for life, is where everyone would like to skip to from the beginning. But few reach it for one of two reasons. The first is a failed consolidation phase, so they rebound after their first time getting into shape and fall into the trap of yo-yo dieting. The second is insufficient time spent in the investment phase, so they don't build any muscle mass, nor develop a change in their mindset, identity, and behaviour. This causes either stagnation, or worse yet, a slow demise back to the starting point. Today's guest on RNT Fitness Radio, Tom Bridges, didn't make any of these mistakes this time round when he started with RNT in June 2017. For years, Tom had been trying to get into shape. With high cholesterol, poor blood markers, and a lifestyle of heavy drinking, fast food, and long working hours, he knew his efforts were going to waste. He was the classic program-hopping Monday to Thursday dieter who struggled with yo-yoing, lethargy, and poor body confidence. Ever since, he's worked through all 5 phases to take him to the Holy Grail, being in the shape of his life, for life. Better yet, he's now using the physical as the vehicle for the greater good in all areas of his life. This podcast is dedicated to the power of the journey and what can be achieved when you go all in. To see his incredible changes at each phase of the journey, click on the case study linked in the show notes today. A truly inspiring story I can't wait for you to listen to. How's it going?
Yeah, not bad. How are you?
Yeah, good. Doing well. Long time no speak.
Oh, man. It's been very weird.
Yeah, I guess your whole year's been kind of thrown out the window.
Literally, yeah. I mean, going to the start of this year, you're thinking it's going to be a good year, obviously. There's a lot going on. There was a lot of planning that was already done, a lot of work going into it. And then this all kicks off and throws a bit of a spanner in the work, but it is what it is. It just means you get to add more time and add more to the planning at the end of the day.
Yeah. When are you going to move it to? Have you thought about it?
Yeah. So we're provisionally, because to be honest, everyone's obviously trying to move, right? So we're in a position where you've got people who've already booked for next year already, say this year and last year. And then everyone who was supposed to be doing like their wedding this year, trying to move it back. So we just chose, there was about 3 dates free next year in summer. So we've gone for June, which is basically the earliest, because we've also already got friends who are, I think like 4 friends' weddings between April and May next year.
Okay, wow, yeah.
It's like you're trying to not over encroach on anyone else's and just try and separate them as much as you can. So at least then it doesn't feel like such a burden, because there's such an overlap between our friend groups there that those 4 weddings is virtually the same people going to be at each one, more or less.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's good in that sense. Like it'll be one massive celebration, right? And then realistically, ours looks like it'll be the last one, at least for this summer, but you never know.
And is it still in Italy?
Yeah, still sticking with Italy. Look, we both wanted to do that, so we're going to try and keep to doing that as much as possible. We've spoken to the people, so we've got a planner out there who's doing a lot of work for us. Spoken with the venue as well, and they're kind of confident that next year should be fine. There shouldn't be really any issues. Hopefully, obviously, no one knows for definite, but it's likely that's still going to be the case. So we're just trying to push ahead with it, because I think when we start telling family as well, everyone got a bit excited. And at least for my side, we've not done an on-board wedding, and same for Gina's like immediate family. They've not really had an on-board wedding either. Yeah. So everyone got a bit excited, even though it's only like a 2-hour flight away, but it's just something different. It's a different vibe than I think doing it here. So we want to try and keep that momentum going as much as possible. And the way we just keep selling it to people is, you just get to celebrate a little bit harder because it's the end of quarantine. You've got to celebrate with us now. There's no other option. You can't say no.
I'll put a positive spin on it somehow, eh?
The only way to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the summer shred is what's the plan with the summer shred?
So I said, yeah, like I think it was so perfect timing as well. You know what I mean? Like start around, like carry on where we are from say March onwards. Start cutting down. Do about 12 weeks. Hit holiday in June. Then it was supposed to be civil in July, wedding in September. So July to September was just going to be maintenance, right?
Yeah.
And then that meant, at least when it comes to fittings and outfits, there was no issues, no concerns, and I'd come in hopefully in a better shape. And that was the aim than I did last year.
Yeah.
Now with all this, I'm in a position where I think I'd still like to, don't get me wrong, I'd still like to come in as lean as I can do. But for example, that June deadline doesn't exist anymore for me. And realistically, there's like not having a gym at the moment doesn't help. I think it makes it harder. It's not the end of the world, but for me, I think I'd push that time frame back now, say, try and do it a little bit slower, a bit more controlled, bring it down leaner and leaner bit by bit, but maybe push it back to say like August.
Yeah.
Try and lean out by then. And then maybe even potentially just have like a lifestyle maintenance, at least until the wedding now, which isn't an ideal position for me because I like going through those progressive phases.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to then obviously going for fittings and outfits and getting stuff measured up, I'm probably in a better position if I'm kind of maintaining the whole way through. It's not a case of going, right, I'm probably going to be a lot leaner actually than what I am right now. So let's try and allow for that, or I'll have to go back for another fitting and get amendments.
So you're going to try and stay shredded for a year?
Not fully shredded, don't get me wrong, maintenance shredded. So come in shredded and then consolidate nicely and look lean, but obviously not as like bone dry as I could look. But
you don't want to look bone dry at your wedding.
No, definitely not. And I don't want to look fluffy either, right? I want to try and be in that in-between phase. And that's why I thought if I come in shredded in June, consolidate for July, that 1 month period alone, my face, I know instantly looks less like just gaunt. I personally don't mind that look, to be fair. I was like, wow, this is great. I've not looked this like just lean and skinny in like forever. And for me, I was like, all right, great, I love it. But everyone else was like, yeah, you know, a bit gaunt. And I'm like, all right.
Well, I was looking at your, I was putting together your case study this morning, putting the pictures together. Because we're going to release this podcast will come out the second week of May. So I was just getting it all ready, and I was looking at your first picture, the one in the bathroom. Right. I was like, I don't even recognize that guy anymore. Like I'm so used to seeing you like this. Like I don't recognize that guy.
It's actually crazy. Like people, when I was going through that process, people who hadn't seen me in a while, like say before that first photo or since that first photo up until maybe the following year where I dropped, I think that following year I dropped to about 150, right? Yeah. So that was a big drop for me. And that was one of my lean. That's when I started getting proper visible abs. And I looked very decent at that point for me in general compared to what I looked before. People were shocked. No one even knew who I was at one point. Like that, I was with my mum sometimes at her events, and we'd be talking to old family friends or old friends of hers who have met me when I'm younger. And they're like, oh, where's your son? I'd be like standing next to you. She's like, no, he's here. I'm like, no, what are you on about? And like going to family gatherings with extended family and stuff like that, people just don't remember or they don't picture you. They're like, who are you? And it's a nice feeling, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's crazy the differences.
Why don't we start by talking about where that picture started, where that picture came from? Like what led to that picture? What was like the journey towards that point? I know this for you goes right back down to your childhood and your teens, and so talk about that story that leading up to the picture. Yeah,
so I mean, look, I've been, I think, exercising and gymming probably and playing sports since I was probably about 8, maybe 7, 8 years old, from primary school, doing activities outside. So I used to always do rugby, football, cricket, swimming, tennis. I was very active as a child, always was. And then as those sports progressed and as my ages progressed, that moved into going to the gym and doing exercise like that, lifting weights, being a little less cardiovascular and obviously a little bit more weight intensive to try and just build up that size, etc. In general, I think you go through that time in your life where you're looking at magazines and you're looking at the internet and videos and pictures of people and you're like, oh, this is what I should be looking like, or this is how I need to look. So then you start going, right, I'll gym, I'll follow these programs, etc. And I'll be doing all that. And then in my head, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. I'm following programs. I'm following what I'm supposed to be doing. This is all going to work out. It's going to be great, blah, blah, blah. And then that obviously progressed and I kept doing that from then, I think, hitting the gym properly around maybe 15, 16. But when I say properly, I mean, as in I was going to the gym and I was doing weights, but I wouldn't say I was doing it in the sense of properly, where I had a proper program with proper nutrition, proper diet, proper consistency. For me, it was, I'm doing sports on the side and I'm exercising. It's great. There'll be no issues. I'll come out looking out. This is incredible. And then that kept happening. And then a couple of injuries later, a few knee injuries playing rugby. That eventually put me into a position where I just stopped playing sports altogether. I think probably around 17, 18. For me, I think I probably could have carried on playing sports if I'd done it properly, but I got to a point where after 2 knee injuries and surgery, I was like, mentally, I just went, no, it's not worth it. I don't want to carry on doing it and get into a position where, suddenly I can't do this just everyday activities I should be doing as easily. And then, you go to uni and it's the same sort of cycle. I think quite a lot of people go through it, to be fair. You get a bit of freedom, you're going exercising, but you're out, you're drinking, you're doing late nights, you're studying maybe late night. And because you're doing all these late night sessions, say even when it's work related, then you just start eating junk, right? And then if you're working out great, but then you go, I'm going to go out for a night out, obviously. So you're drinking. And then you come back after drinking and you eat junk. And then uni just became a terrible cycle of, I'd go gym, but I knew I was getting bigger no matter what. And not in a good way, just bigger, right? Rounder.
Yeah.
And it was a negative cycle, because really it wasn't, I was getting bigger and I was trying to do anything about it. I was getting bigger, still eating crap, and then going, I'm just going to go gym and burn it all off, it'll be fine. And obviously that does not happen. I think even once uni finished and I started working, I think I was more conscious afterwards about the shape I was in, but again, not really knowing exactly what to do, trying to look at fad diets, short-term changes, 6-week plans, 12-week plans, trying to say, this is a magic cure for everything. You can just, cut out your carbs, do 12 weeks of no carbs and you drop loads of weight, you look great. Maybe that works for some, but obviously it's not the healthiest way to do things either, right? And I just, again, fell into that cycle of doing it over and over again where nothing changed for me. And I was just getting worse and worse. I think even just pre-uni, I ended up having high cholesterol, high LDLs, high triglycerides, high blood pressure at 18. And no one wants to be in that position. And whether it's a bit hereditary, because it could be to an extent, that's what they think. And we just caught it randomly because I had to get a check done. But also, my lifestyle was terrible when you think about it, right? The amount of alcohol I was drinking, the amount of junk food I was eating, the lifestyle did not fit a healthy body by any means. And I think the blood work that was coming back kind of represented that lifestyle as well. And so then it got to a stage where I'm like, I need to do something about my life. Like, this is just ridiculous. I'm not happy looking how I looked. And I never was. I think every year I used to go to myself, right, before my birthday, I want to try and get lean. I want to try and get abs. I want to just try and drop some weight. And every year I would do that. I'd say, yeah, after my birthday, it happened. For the next year, I'll get into that shape. Obviously, I didn't. And that just kept happening each year. And I was like, and then it wouldn't happen. And then I'd go, like, fine, next year's the year, next year's the year. And it was one of those just continually spinning over and over and over, but nothing changed. So then I got to a point where I was like, right, I need to make that difference. Took that photo and it was just like, yeah, this is ridiculous. We looked at that properly, took a front photo, took, I think, a front and a back photo just to see where I was at, really, and compare it to what other people were doing or what other transformations I'd seen up to date. And knowing that's really the biggest starting point is just knowing where you actually are at the beginning. And you look at that, or at least I looked at that and I was like, this is ridiculous. This isn't what I thought I really looked like. I think you have a bit of maybe body dysmorphia and you kind of tell yourself you're not as bad as you really are. Maybe subconsciously and deep down, you actually are as bad as it probably looks. But in your head, you're like, oh, no, I'm not as bad as people might think I look or how people vocalize it. It's just them trying to help me try and change. And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, I'm definitely as bad as that. And instantly you look at that and I was like, what am I doing in my life? Like, terrible blood markers, terrible fitness, body was not where I wanted it to be. And then my confidence just dropped more so than it probably had beforehand, because I think before my confidence was still somewhat there because I was almost fooling myself into thinking, yeah, I'm not as bad as it is. And I looked at it and I was like, no, this is just not right. Something needs to change. And then that was the real kicking point. I was like, right, it's either I stay like this or progressively get worse, or I actually now make a difference. Let's just take a step to making a change. And then that's what really led me to getting into this position I am now. That's what really started that whole process for me of going, right, we need to make a change. How are we going to do that? What's the best way of doing it?
What was the trigger then? Was it taking that photo, or was there something else that came after?
Yeah, I think taking the photo was definitely one of them. And then it's also been just an ongoing thing. You know, people, like my friends have always jokingly just been like, oh yeah, you're the fat one in the group, blah, blah, blah. And that was always by far true. And I don't think it was ever said really in a malicious way, especially by them. These are people that obviously care about you. And as guys, we joke around in certain ways and we say things in certain ways to motivate someone to make a change and make that change, like make that push happen. I remember all the time, especially with Minnow in particular, right? Since he started going gym and getting changes and shapes, he's always like, you know, if you just lost a bit of weight, if you trained hard, if you diet properly, you look great, all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. I'm not as bad as it looks. Like, it's calm, don't worry. I'll get there eventually. I'll do it. And obviously never did it. But he obviously, you know, he's one of those people where he'll just consistently go on and on and on at you. And that is then always in the back of your mind. You're like, yeah, fine. He's just going to keep going on and on and on at me. So I've had that persistent nagging almost. And then it was a case of, look, yeah, the bloods were at a point where I didn't want those bloods to be getting any worse. Because you don't want to be in a position where you're like, I don't know, 24, 25, and going on like medication for this stuff. There's just no need if you can avoid it. And for me, it's one of those things where I knew I could avoid it. I was just lazy as well. I just took the easy path of eating wherever I can. So it's the constant nagging for Minnow. And it is that picture for me. It was like, yeah, it's time for a change. If I don't do it now, am I actually ever going to really do it? Or am I just going to keep fooling myself into thinking, no? And I think at the same time, what also helped is having seen the work you'd done before, and then the fact that you were properly kicking everything off. And I knew you as an RNT are going to get results because you've already done results. I think I felt comfortable, like initially reaching out to you guys to go, right, I want to make a change. I also trust you enough to go to me if I wasn't doing something right, like just give me a kick up the arse and go, right, it's time for you to change, or why are you not doing this, or why are you doing that? Like your results aren't showing what you're telling me or something like that. Whereas you could potentially go with another third party and they might not really do that because they don't have that relationship or understanding or knowledge of you and your past. Whereas here, I think I felt comfortable knowing that, look, at the end of the day, if I was cheating, you're going to know I'm not doing something right or I'm not following through how I should be. And for me, that was also one of the factors. And I thought was, right, I need to make that change. And this is the way to do it for me.
Had you ever been in the face of accountability before? Or was this the first time you'd heard yourself accountable? And if so, how did you find that?
Yeah, I think this is the first time I've properly held myself accountable. You know, I think I've done programs in the past, as I said, and I don't think there's accountability in that. There's, in the sense that you're not really working closely with someone, you're not having direct contact with an individual or a coach, you're not providing progressive updates, you're working off what they've done with someone else. So for example, they might have produced a book, right? You're following those steps and you know what progress that person who is in the book and the pictures and the articles, they followed through, and that's how they looked at each stage. So for me, that was my accountability. I was looking at where this person had got to and thinking, well, if they've done this in, say, 2 weeks, and then in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, I should be on a similar sort of track and timeline. And it's all well and good thinking that, but obviously each individual is different. We have different starting phases. I was obviously significantly larger and heavier than that individual was anyway. So it's hard for you to now, looking back, go, you should be having the same progression. It really won't. Everyone's progression is different. So no, I hadn't really had that proper accountability, I think, of having an individual coach who I was reaching out to on a weekly basis, providing feedback, getting feedback to me, making changes and updates, and actually seeing weekly changes and progression, which is also fundamental, I think. And I think I've said this all the time now. When anyone asks me, what was one of your, like, the biggest things you've learned from this and what have you gained the most? And it's always been, for me, accountability. I think you need to be accountable to someone in the very beginning. If you're not, then it's very easy for you to just go, I think, oh, I've missed a workout, it's fine, I'll make up for it next one. Or, you know, I've gone out drinking, I'm just going to have a burger. Or I've gone out drinking in the first place and I shouldn't have. Or, you know, I've had a little slip up on the diet, it's fine, I'll make up for it. Or sometimes it's even, I've slipped up on the diet, you know what, I'll just let it slip now for the rest of the week. So it might be a weekend, the weekend's gone, I'll write that off. And the following week, I'll go hard, I'll do it properly, and there'll be no changes and I'll stick to it no matter what. Problem is, when you get into that kind of mentality, you don't stick to it, right? Once you make one slip up, it's so much easier for you to slip up again and again and again and just effectively make excuses for you to allow yourself to slip up. Whereas having that accountability of actually providing pictures, weight check-ins, how your week's been, like your lifts, all of that to someone else who's looking at it abstract on a third-party person view, you know they're going to look at it and go, well, your weight's gone up, but you should be going down. What have you done? You're telling me you've not cheated. Something's obviously happened. So where is that increase come from? Or, you know, your lifts are just, you've dropped your weight lifts all the time. You're not increasing in any way. Is there a reason behind that? What's going on? And I think that accountability just made such a massive difference for me. In my head, I think that helped cause that shift to make this transformation easier and just my general progression through all the phases, because I knew someone else with significantly more knowledge than me and experience is looking at this and has got, because of that experience, so much more understanding of what's going on that they'll know instantly something's not right or this doesn't add up. And I'm not going to be able to obviously lie my way out of it or make excuses to you saying, oh no, it's because of this, and this, it's fine. Next week will be okay, but obviously next week probably won't be okay. So that accountability for me was key.
What shift were you talking about there? You said a shift in your transformation. What are you mentioning here?
Yeah, so I think in general, just the whole transformation process. So going from that very initial phase of trying to just, from the starting point, knowing that I couldn't really make any excuses, but I think that very, very first, I want to call it like like that mini cycle cut, which began just before holiday. And that was really, I think, my first, almost like dipping your toe into the water, right, to test it out for me.
Back then, we didn't really have a name for it. We call it cleaning the palate now.
Yeah, exactly. Back then, it was just me trying to get lean.
Just for the listeners, Tom was one of our very first clients who started with us when we launched RNT. So the podcast we're going to talk about today is actually working through all the phases. And Tom's probably one of the best testaments for someone who's not only got into shape, but more importantly, has managed to maintain that over the long run. And I'm not just talking a couple of months. We're talking years here. So this will be insightful for anyone who's at the start, mid of the journey, who's a year in, who's 2 years in, because Tom's 3 years into his journey and he's still making progression. So for anyone at any stage of the journey, Tom's the man you'll listen to. I've written him, he's in the book. I've written a section of him in the book, which is why I wanted to get him out on the podcast today before the book's released. So keep your eyes peeled, keep your ears glued to Tom's words here.
Yeah, so that initial, let's call it clean the palate now, right? But obviously, like I said, didn't really have a name for it. It was my initial starting process with you. And obviously, I knew I wanted to make changes. I wanted to make those changes happen, and this was the way to do it. But you also go into it with, I think, I wouldn't say apprehension, but just it's hard for someone who's spent years and years and years not making those progressive changes, in the, I think, the actual body changes, but also the mental changes that it requires. And it does require a big mental shift, I think, going from doing the same thing over and over, not getting anywhere, and also just that whole process of no accountability and making excuses for yourself and to yourself about why it's fine and you can change and that's no issue. But when you first then get that taste of accountability and requirement, like I said, there's that mental shift in knowing, yeah, you really have to do this. But also, I think it is at the very onset hard for you to go, oh, maybe it is okay if I just have like a bit of chocolate here or just a little sandwich or, just something I'm not supposed to have at the very beginning, because you're like, that's fine, I'll make up for it again. And you kind of you almost fall back into that same trap you were doing before. And I think that cleaning the palate phase is so important for people starting their journey, regardless of how long your journey is, regardless of how long you're trying to make these changes for, whether it's long-term lifestyle, whether you're in a good position and you're trying to just make it better and you need help. Everyone needs to go through this phase, I think, regardless, right? Because there's obviously something we're not doing right at the very beginning that's required us to even reach out to you guys and ask for help. And I think that palate phase is extremely important because you can very easily fall back into that trap of making those excuses, right? And for me, I almost did. Maybe on a couple of occasions I probably did, to be honest with you. But it got to a point where, again, I started to see results. And I think I ended up becoming more results driven, but that was more towards the end of that phase. And the beginning of that phase, I wasn't seeing results, I was thinking to myself, oh, but is this worth it? Is it right? Who's at fault here? Is it me, or is it like you guys? Obviously, deep down knowing it's me, because I'm not really sticking to it properly, or I'm not following through, or, you know, if I'm supposed to be doing 5 days a week of working out, right, and I've had a long day at work and I've just missed a session and I've just got no energy, and I'm going, right, there's no way I can hit the gym. I've come home and it's like 8 p.m. If I go to gym now, it'll be 10 p.m. by the time I get home, by the time I eat, and I just make an excuse and I go, oh, it's fine. You know what, I'll skip a rest day. I'll just make up for those 5 days. And so in my 7-day week, I'll skip out maybe a rest day somewhere else and I'll just do back-to-backs. Again, you fall into that trap where you don't, because you become so fatigued from the workouts you're doing anyway, that you need that rest day. So you don't end up making up for the workout session. And then it becomes easy to fall into that trap of just doing that more often than not and going, right, well, I've had such a hard day at work, or, you know what, this day in general has just been so difficult. I just haven't got the time to go to the gym, or I haven't got the energy to go to the gym. I've got no willpower. I can't do it. And if that does happen, I think it's important to obviously talk to your coach, because more often than not, they might be able to offer some sort of solution, right? But also, if you do start doing that, you're going to fall into, again, this cycle of just doing it more often than not. And eventually you're going to end up making more excuses, not only to yourself, but then to your coach, even though you're accountable to them. And you're probably not going to see the results you want to see, or you might see some results, but it's not going to be to the extent that you probably should see or would expect to have seen. And then you're going to get into that cycle of going, right, who's to blame again? And because in your head, you're going, oh no, it's fine. I'm making excuses for myself. You're probably going to start trying to push the blame on someone else, when ultimately that's not where it lies. And again, I think I've said this too, when anyone asks me, like, is this hard? Is this an easy process? Am I going to be able to do it? Again, it's accountability, but also I always say to people, you're only going to get out what you put in at the end of the day. It's just one of those processes. If you're not willing to put in the work, or if you're not willing to go as hard as you should be, you're not willing to put in the effort, how are you really expecting to see such magnificence and transformational results? Because you need the input to get the output. It's just how it works. So how can you say to yourself and someone else, oh yeah, I know, I'm going ad hoc, I'm not going as often, you know, every now and then I'm not sticking to the diet properly. I might have a cheat meal every now and then, or I might just have a weekend off or a week off. That's probably the worst thing possible. And you get to that point where you obviously aren't going to see that output. It's just, again, you might see some output because you might be seeing beginner's gains, for example, or you might be in such a starting point that you're going to see an output because you might be in a calorie deficit, right? So overall, you're going to see some sort of outcome, but it's not the outcome you should be seeing because you're just making those excuses.
One thing I'm talking about a lot here is that kind of game in your head, that voice in your head, where there's two things fighting you all the time. And ultimately the bad is always winning, and throws you into that cycle. What was the point for you where you shifted out of that, where you weren't kidding yourself anymore? You started to rewire your mindset around this. When did that shift started to happen? And what do you think was the cause of it?
Yeah, so I think it was, well, as I said before, I think during that first clean palate phase, towards the second half of it, or towards the end of it, I really started to see some results properly, right? I noticed that my face was looking a lot slimmer than it had before. And for me, that's always been a thing about, like, I've always hated the fact that I've had such a round face, and just, you look back, and I look back at photos now of myself. And again, obviously I was subconsciously kidding myself that I wasn't bad, and I wasn't as bad as I looked. And then, like, as we said at the beginning, when I look at some of those really old photos, even back from uni, I'm like, who the hell is this? Like, what was I even thinking? What was that thought process? So when I started to see those changes come through, like I said, I became more results driven. When I started to see the weight drop, and one of the things I did for me is I initially started, I think, providing and taking my measurements in kilograms, and I shifted that to pounds very early on, purely because once I noticed that you'll obviously see a change in your pounds probably quicker than you do in your kilogram changes. So whether that's just a 1 pound drop or a 2 pound drop, I think for anyone starting out, mentally, it's just important for you to see that there's some sort of change happening. So even if I did 1 week and I just saw a 1 pound drop, I'd be like, great, there's a change. Something's happened. I've obviously done something right. Is that all I can do, or can I do more in a week? And then, the next week I've pushed a little bit harder. I've followed the plan properly, or I've gone extra hard in the gym. I've really given it my all within the requirements. I've seen a 1.5 pound or a 2 pound drop. And then seeing those changes and those results come out, that's what really clicks in your head. I think, right, this works. Like if I just follow and listen and do as I'm told, follow the plan, listen to my coach, give proper updates, you know, when I check in, give you as much information as possible rather than just a quick, this is my weight, this is where I'm at, here's a picture, what do you think? There's only so much you're going to be able to take from that and give back, right? Yeah. By me giving proper information as well, we're going to see better feedback as a client. And then that's going to lead us to, I think, become more results driven, but also see greater results. And when you're starting out, seeing those results and those changes, which you weren't seeing beforehand, or you weren't consistently seeing beforehand, I think that's where that real click comes into place. And you go, right, I might as well stick with this person. I might as well listen to them and let's see where we can take it. And I think that initial first, again, like that clean and palate phase, the results that came out of it, for me at the time were great because I'd seen such a massive shift in my body weight, but also just the appearance of my body was so much different. You know, my clothes fit better. I dropped down a size. My waist dropped down a size. I was like, this is great. I didn't think I'd ever be like this. And I was, at that time, a little bit more, I think I got content with that look. And then I think, you know, it was after that phase and then we started talking about what's next, where are we going to go next, what can I do next? And that's when I really started to, I think, realize I can give so much more and I can get so much more out of this and I can change my body so much more than I already have. Like, why not see where we can take this and see how far we can go? And that's really where I think I got that proper push and that drive to just take it as far as we can. And I think each progressive change, and I'm sure we'll cover this, each progressive phase is, I saw different changes no matter what, but they were always positive changes, positive outcomes. And that came with that mental click of, right, let's keep going, let's not cheat, let's go through it, let's follow through, let's stick to it. And also, I think that drive to just really want to take this as far as I can.
So it's almost like as the momentum was building in the gym and with the results you were seeing, it was just giving you that confidence inside and giving you that rewiring of the brain that we were talking about. Yeah,
no, definitely. Yeah. I think as you see these results, you do, like I said before, at the very beginning, I was not confident in myself. I think I lacked a lot of self-confidence. As I progressed throughout all of this time, that confidence is just only built and built and built and built, right? And I've gone to a phase where I think I'm very confident in the way I look and the way I approach myself and the way I handle myself now, not just when it comes to fitness and gym, but also in, I think, almost every aspect of my life now. It's that skill, or I guess that feeling, just transfers throughout every aspect of your life. And it's just one of the added benefits you get out of just following through a transformation. Like, you don't just get the physical change. It is almost a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle change because I've now become more confident. That's impacted me at work and my personal life. And I've seen so many changes and improvements and benefits as a result of this. That's incredible to see that I probably would not even notice this or had this happen before.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, I think, like, look, when I go into work, initially before starting, I was probably a bit more reserved, a bit more, I wouldn't say shy, because I'm not necessarily a shy person. I think I just take a bit of time to build that relationship with someone where I become comfortable with myself, that I can then speak to them, joke around and, you know, consider them like colleagues and whatnot, friends, to the point where I'm just my normal self. But I think, and look, during my time with you guys, I think I've actually moved into 2 new jobs over that time, 2 different companies. And each time I've shifted companies, that initial starting off phase, I've improved in the sense that I've joined a new company, which was during like my first clean and palate phase. And I saw those changes happen. I became more confident in myself and I reached out to my colleagues better. And people noticed that I was more open and just more, I think, personable and able to communicate well with everyone. And then during the next process of me moving to a new company and starting there, I think I'd already gained such a significant amount of confidence that I went straight into that company and I was, you know, on the ball. I was able to reach out to quite a lot of people and start building those relationships relatively quickly because I was more confident in myself from, I think, an appearance perspective, that it encroached into my work. I became more confident in my ability to perform my role, my ability and my knowledge, my ability to actually take on information and give information back to others, as well as build those personal relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think that the confidence you gain in mastering your physical always transcends. Yeah. And it's just, you can just tell when someone is just confident in their own skin because they've mastered the one thing they can't control, which is their body.
Yeah, and I think I say that a lot to people as well. I mean, I sound like I talk a lot to people about this, but when people do ask as well about certain things, again, one of the things I say is there's very little I think we can necessarily completely control in our lifetime and in our lives. But as you just said, your body and the way you look is probably one of the few things where you do have a high or quite a significant amount of control over. Don't get me wrong, there's always going to be cases where you've got hereditary issues or conditions which are just going to impact you, and that does happen. That's not to say that that isn't going to impact you either and make it more difficult. But there are, I think, for quite a number of people, the body is, and the way you, I think, feel about your body and the way you look with your body is one of the things you do control, because it all comes down to really what you're putting in to make that change or to maintain it. Your diet, your exercise, your activity levels, all of that. They all are the drivers to making that change.
Yeah. And when we talk about you mentioned hereditary issues. At the start, you said that you weren't sure whether the blood markers were due to hereditary issues. What have you found out about that? What the markers gone from to and from, and what were the causes did you find?
Yeah. So I think from a history perspective, like my grandfather has high blood pressure, high cholesterol. My dad, I think, has high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and has done for a while now. And so does my uncle on my dad's side. And then even on my mom's side, I think there's been cases of high blood pressure, and probably, Indians do tend to have sometimes high cholesterol as well. But just in general, there is those aspects there. So for me coming in and I think like 17 or 18, where we'd just gone for a check and they go, oh yeah, your blood pressure is a bit high. So I was like, okay, fine. I just thought maybe it's nothing to worry about. Then they put me on like a 24-hour monitor just to check. So, and then they realized, yeah, your blood pressure is consistently quite high. I was like, okay. Did some bloods, and I think my triglycerides were probably, my cholesterol was at like a 7.2 or something ridiculous. And you need to be below a 6 to be like a good level. And I think my triglycerides were around a 4. And I think you need to be, again, below like a 3 to be at a good level. Just for someone my age, that's just not really natural. Scary. Yeah, they were a bit concerned as to how that's even happened. And they go, look, obviously you have potential for that to be a history thing, but at the same time, that's not to say that this isn't just lifestyle related. This could quite easily be to do with the way you live, the food you eat, the amount you're drinking, what you're drinking, etc. And so I think that, again, like I said, that was one of the changes I wanted to make, and the changes I wanted to see was just generally healthier, right? And then throughout this entire process over the last 3 years, I think my bloods, I got tested maybe 3 times because they didn't want to obviously do it too regularly. And each time there was a drop. And it got to a point where I fell within healthy regions. I think my cholesterol dropped to about 5.8 maybe, or 5.9. And my triglycerides dropped to 2.7.
Amazing.
Those fall within the boundaries of just a normal, healthy, young adult. But also for me, those are massive changes, because it meant I don't need to suddenly go on medication. People are less concerned. My blood pressure dropped to just normal ranges. My heart rate is now I think last time I had a heart rate test, I was about maybe 60 beats per minute, just resting. So everything dropped. My resting dropped. My blood pressure is very consistently normal within the range. Triglycerides and cholesterol is all consistently normal now within the range. So I think that is obviously attributed to the change in my physical body without a doubt, but also it's the diet. Cleaning up my diet made such a massive impact to that, and it was noticed relatively quickly. I think it's probably actually apparent in quite a lot of people at a young age, but you just don't get tested for these things. Obviously, you're not going to go half the time. I don't think you're going to have someone go to you, oh, let's just have a look at what your cholesterol levels are for the sake of it. I mean, unless they're doing full blood work on you. So people probably do have these sort of higher levels without realizing. I think I was just lucky in the sense that I was getting my blood pressure checked. It was high. So they did all the other blood works. And that's what led to finding out early. Yeah.
One thing I always admire in you is your ability to get everything done around your busy workday, because it's not uncommon for you to be up at 3:30, 4 in the morning just to get your training sessions in. Talk about how you tick your transformation checklist off on a day-to-day basis. So I'm talking training, nutrition, hydration, sleep. steps, the whole shebang. How are you fitting that around extremely long working hours and long commutes as well into city and back? Especially like when you're in a hard dieting phase where the variables are quite high. You know, you're talking 20,000 steps and maybe 5-6 days a week of training.
Yeah. So again, like when we first started off together, I think I tried to just do my training in the evenings, and I'd probably be cooking my meals every day, or if it wasn't cooking a meal, I'd be looking to purchase like food that met within my macro requirements, right? I was hitting each meal, I'd go buy a certain amount of chicken, like cooked chicken already. If I had to hit a certain carb level, I'd make sure I got some sort of microwave rice or something to try and meet those requirements as much as possible. But very early on, I realized that's just not going to work for me. Like going to the gym in the evening wasn't going to work. And from a diet perspective, buying food is never, I think, better than obviously making food. I think most people know that, right? And it becomes very easy when you're buying stuff to get a little bit sidetracked and buy something you're not supposed to buy, or you're not fully aware of what's going into it and how it's made. So you don't fully know like the actual macros of it. I know they provide that, but there could be variables there that you're not sure about, right? A little change in weight in a packet of chicken could instantly impact those macros, but I'm not carrying scales around with me, so I'm not measuring everything out. I'm just taking it as face value. So I had to figure out what to do. I was lucky that the gym I go to is a 24-hour gym. So it got to a stage where I was like, right, let me try going gym early. I mean, I had to be in work for probably sometime between 7:30 and 8 in the morning. So that meant going to the gym probably around, like I said, 4:30 to do a proper hour-long session, hour and a bit maybe, depending on how I was structuring it. So it started off with me maybe just doing my weights only. So I'd go a little bit later in the morning and then come home, and then I'd try and do my steps in the evening. And again, that just didn't really work, because you come home after a long day and you really do fall into that fatigue phase where you're saying, oh, I can't go to the gym, or I can't go to my steps. I really just don't want to leave the house. I've just got home from a long day of work. Why am I now going to suddenly leave, go outside? It's dark, it's cold, or it's raining. I'm just not doing it. And that's a mental barrier there, right? So then it got to a phase where, right, I'll go earlier to the gym, do either my list, my low intensity steady steps in the morning. So whether that's like 40 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour sometimes of steps in the morning, just get it out of the way, get it done, and then go do my weights. Or sometimes I'll do my weights, go really hard on that session, and then might almost like cool down to an extent, or just wait to, I think, bring my mind back into just a focused mindset, was doing the steps after. Because by doing the steps after, it gave me time to just focus on one thing, as from a body perspective. All I needed to do was walk, right? That doesn't require a lot of thinking at all. So while that's going on, I could almost prepare myself for the rest of the day, whether that's quickly checking any emails that come in overnight, answering any questions that come in overnight, or just mentally looking at my calendar for the day and saying, right, I've got to do this, mentally preparing myself for that day to come, so I could just perform to my best as much as possible. I think I've gotten better at that over time. I've gotten to a pace where I know roughly, my body got to a stage where it knew to wake up consistently around 4:30 without doubt, right? Sometimes 3:30 if I really had to push it. But that helps because I'm now naturally waking up. Even on the weekends, sometimes I'm up by like 5. Not ideal by any means, don't worry. But I just naturally now wake up. Okay, so that's an added benefit, and it makes life easier now for me to go to the gym. Not everyone has that ability or is able to yet. It's something I think you can learn to do. You just have to continuously repeat that action and ingrain it into your brain. And then from a diet perspective, I started batch cooking very quickly, because I think, you read articles and you look online and everyone talks about batch cooking, how much easier it makes your lifestyle. And for you always talk about this decision fatigue, right? Taking out that decision fatigue by just batch cooking and cooking the same thing. And then what have I got to think about for the rest of the day? Food is not a concern for me. I tried batch cooking, I think, on a Sunday for almost a week, like a whole week in one go. And I think I got a bit bored towards the end of that week of the same chicken, rice and veg kind of meal. So I started batch cooking in 2 to 3 day groups. I'd cook on a Sunday, and then maybe around Wednesday evening, I'd do another quick batch cook. And the more often I do that, then the quicker I became at being able to actually just produce these meals. So now it can take me maybe just 20 minutes to cook something up, chuck it in the oven, batch cook, and then I'm done. When I leave it, it doesn't take as long. Whereas before, I think I was constantly agonizing over every single thing, making sure the weight was identical and exactly how it should be, making sure I wasn't added extra things in with the oils, or, are the spices somehow adding something they shouldn't be. You at the beginning, you really do agonize over every little detail. And I think you should do, because it's good for you to just be very conscious of everything you're putting in. But I think now at this stage, after, like you said, 3 years, I've gotten to a point where I know roughly if I'm going to buy, say, chicken, I'll be buying it from Tesco's. I know now more or less if I'm trying to hit X amount of protein per meal, I know more or less what weight I need to hit, or at least visually I can look at it and go, right, that's more or less, that's what I want. Maybe 1 or 2 grams off, but I can make up for that elsewhere, kind of thing. Which now has helped speed up that process. But for definite, look, it's important to find time within anyone's schedule to make sure you hit the gym. Find the easiest way for you to cook, because your diet is so fundamental and key for seeing these changes in your body. And by batch cooking, that decision fatigue, I didn't realize just how much of an impact that had on me daily until I started batch cooking. Because I used to actually really sit there and I'd go, well, what am I going to have for lunch today? I'd be at work and I'd be sitting there around 10 o'clock. I'm hungry. Okay, well, that's weird. What am I going to have for lunch today? And then I start ticking through my head, I can have this, I can have this, I can have this. And then I started stressing about what I'm going to eat. And I'm thinking, why am I stressing about what I'm going to eat? It's just food. Whereas with batch cooking, it's fine. Right, the food's in the fridge, it's fine. I'll come back, I'll heat it up, I'll eat, I'm done. And actually what was really good there is by being able to batch cook, it also then allowed me to, during the day, now go out at lunch and use most of my lunch break to go for a walk. So I now do that. I'm lucky, I can escape for maybe 30, 40 minutes during lunchtime. I'll eat at my desk, that's fine. I've got no issues about doing that. And I'll do like a quick 30, 40 minute walk. And again, you'd be surprised initially how much steps you can do in that time frame, and if you plan out the route to an extent, again, there's no decision fatigue. You're just following the process. And that you just have to find ways of fitting all this into your life. Everyone's lifestyle is different, right? Some people work ridiculous hours. People have kids, right? People have dependables. And that does make, obviously, fitting things in a lot harder. I mean, there probably is ways of doing it, but it's everyone's way of making sure you can do it is going to be different. No one's going to necessarily be able to follow the same process I followed. Not everyone's going to be able to go, right, I'm just going to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, go gym, do my list, come home and go to work. That doesn't always work for people. And not everyone's going to be able to even just get out at lunchtime and go for a walk. I mean, I don't necessarily always be able to every day go out at lunchtime, but I try to make a conscious effort to try and go for a walk during the day. I spend most of my day staring at a computer screen. And it's not ideal being sat down, staring at a computer screen all day without any form of activity. So that's definitely one of the ways I've worked on it. And from a hydration perspective, I drink probably now, I don't know, maybe 6 liters a day. And it's just become, and that's just become my normal process.
Okay.
When I was really starting to cut and shred, right, I was drinking more and more water purely because I was trying not to have as much caffeine. I was trying not to have any 0-calorie drinks, trying just cut out everything as much as possible and just really stick to water, and that's it. And obviously when you're dieting as well, I was always thirsty. And it was also a good way to curb hunger, right? A lot of the time I think you feel hungry, but you're not. Sometimes you're just thirsty, but you don't necessarily know it, and water will curb that. And so I just was constantly drinking more and more water, which is obviously not ideal again when you're at work, because that means you're just going to have to be going to the bathroom a lot. But yeah, it got to a point where because I'm drinking so much water, it's just routine for me. And I'll just be drinking now water most of the time throughout the day. Even on weekends, I'll be drinking water.
Yeah. So you've hit multiple checkpoints along your journey so far. And one of the things you've always been good at is consolidation. Before I talk about that though, because that relates a lot to what we've been doing in the last year. I want to talk about the importance and benefits of long-term investment phases. So periods where you're not focusing on dieting, but instead focusing on strength, muscle gain, also just learning more about your body and lifestyle. How have you found to approach the mindset of this phase where it's not as tangible, it's not as obvious, there's not week-to-week changes? How do you approach these periods which end up being so important in the long run? Yeah,
it's very different from dieting down. I'll say that straight off the bat. I think after my first, let's call it a cutting phase, right? And we did the consolidation, and I got into a point where I was really happy with where I looked. I visibly had abs, and I was like, great, I haven't had abs probably since I was like a skinny 14-year-old, right? And those weren't abs, those were just skinny abs. And I was like, yeah, I've got abs. I don't ever want to lose this. Let's keep this going. And in my head, I was thinking, right, I could try and maintain and do nothing and stick to this lifestyle and just look like this now, sort of, or I can improve, push, and get better. And that's where I refer to having that mental drive to want to change. That's where that really geared up for me, because in order for me to be able to change, I knew I needed to add on more muscle. I dieted down. I looked relatively lean, not by no means as close to photo shoot lean, right? That very first phase. But I looked leaner, and I looked at myself, I was like, I don't have as much muscle as I always thought I did. And I wanted to look bigger. Obviously, you want to look lean a lot of the time, but you want to still look big lean, not skinny lean, if that makes sense. And that helps with that investment phase process, having that mentality, thinking, if I want to look a certain way, it's not all about just getting really lean, but also you now need to add some muscle onto you. Otherwise, you're just going to look skinny almost. But as I said, seeing abs for the first time properly is such a hard thing to let go of. Mentally, you're like, I want to get bigger, but I don't want to lose my abs. But I want to get bigger. What do I do? And so you're internally battling with yourself, and you say it's a lot yourself in your other podcasts, in your articles, it's all about embracing the fluff. And that's for someone who was, say, big before, who's now become in quite a happy shape themselves, it's a hard thing for you to do, because mentally you're thinking, am I just going to revert to how I used to be? And I don't want to do that. Obviously, no one does. But I think what happens with the consolidation phase is that you learn that you can actually, firstly, you learn carbs are not bad. Carbs are by no means bad, which I think before at least for me, I used to think, carbs are terrible. I'll cut out all carbs. And then as we progress, I learned, carbs actually aren't bad at all. I need to have carbs. Otherwise, this is just ridiculous, right? And that consolidation phase then led me to a position in my investment phase where I was slowly increasing my calories. So I was no longer going to be in a calorie deficit. And I wasn't seeing as big changes at that time anyway to my body. I wasn't getting a lot fluffier. I was getting fluffy, but I wasn't getting as fluffy as I mentally envisaged.
Yeah.
And then going through that investment phase, I realized my strength gains were getting so much better. Week on week, workout upon workout, regardless of what it was, I was getting stronger. And obviously that ties in with you having more calories and carbohydrates and proteins and fats, right? And so then having already been results driven in the sense of I wanted to see myself get lean and drop the pounds, I suddenly became results driven to, let's see how strong I can get. Let's see how much I can lift. Each week I tried to add on more weight. And as you know, sometimes that can be a bit detrimental because I try and jump plates.
You've forgotten what a 1.25 kilo plate is, right? Tom's just like, let's add 10 each side each week.
Literally, yeah. I think
he gets half the size each week as well.
Yeah. Again, that's a very easy trap to fall into, I think.
Yeah.
Because you look at people lifting in the gym and you go, they're doing that. I'm not weak. Maybe I can do that as well. And so I'll start doing that. And I might be able to pull it. So if I'm doing a deadlift, I might be able to pull it up, but my form is not right. My form is a bit all over the place. I'm shaking. I'm like throwing my back out. I'm just trying to make as many shortcuts as possible to try and just pull up the weight and, try and give myself a bit of like an ego boost almost, right? Mm-hmm. One thing I think you learn very quickly is you've got to check your ego at the door. Like there's nothing wrong with chucking on a 1.25 plate or 2.5 plate to increase your lifts. It's all about slow, progressive up in your lifts and in your weights, because if you're not going to progress slowly, you're either going to cause yourself an injury or you're just doing it wrong, most likely. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, there's going to be periods where you naturally can, I think, lift heavier than you have been because you've just naturally gained that strength, but you haven't realized it. But once you get to a point where you're lifting quite heavy each time, I always try to increase by chucking on a 5 or a 10, thinking, yeah, that's fine. No, it's just 5 or 10, it's nothing. But obviously in the grand scale of things, that's quite heavy on each side. So yeah, as that strength kept increasing, that's really what helped me through that investment phase to continue to progress and slowly embrace that fluff. But again, as I was saying, I guess gaining that fluff, what you call the fluff, wasn't as much as what I thought it was going to be. Don't get me wrong, my abs were by no means as visible as they were before, but you could sort of see an outline, which was great. I mean, they still gave me a little bit of an ego kick. Well, great, I'm still getting some
The thing
muscle.
about embracing the fluff is people mistake it for you're just going to become a fat slob. And that's not what I mean. What I mean by embracing the fluff is that it's literally that, in that you're not going to be as sharp as before. You're going to be a bit fluffier.
Yeah.
How fluffy you get is dependent on, like, exactly what you said with your history. Like, for someone like yourself who's always been overweight, you're not someone who really wants to go for an aggressive building phase. And I think for most people that's going to be where they're at. But you still need to embrace a little bit of fluff, because it's impossible to build muscle without the associated fat gain. If we could build pure muscle without fat, I think we'd all be doing it, but it's just not possible.
Yeah,
so you have to embrace that extra bit of fluff in order to get to that next level.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. I mean, look, for you to progress your physique to the next level, if you haven't built that muscle in one of these phases via an investment phase, then really when you just cut down and say shred yourself down, really what's going to be the difference between this shred and say the shred before, right? The cut before and the cut after. Physically, you might see tiny changes because you've gained a little bit of muscle mass, but if you do a proper investment phase and you stick to it and you really learn to accept, like you said, you're not going to be as sharp as you were before, but ultimately you're going to come out of this looking great if you really do follow through. But it also, I think, means that following that next cutting cycle and then you go into that consolidation phase, for a lot of people, they're probably going to be very happy with that. And that means they're going to get to a point where they're going to be able to then create that lifestyle maintenance of, I want to kind of look more or less like this with a little bit of fluff, but you've already learned to embrace the fluff. And, if you say, have a holiday, you can probably just drop a few pounds and you'll be more or less in a very good physique shape. But day to day, you're very content and you're comfortable and you've got such a level of confidence already, you're happy. And then there's going to be other people that want to, I think, progress through phases each time. So they go through a long investment phase, right? They want to see where they're at, so they cut down. They see big changes and they're like, well, let's go through another investment phase. Let's see where we're at. And then again, cut and invest. And you can do that. And I think it really depends on your mindset and your ultimate goals. Like for me right now, I'm probably just going to keep going through, I think, investment for a long time and then a cut phase. But that's just purely because I do want to look bigger each time. I want to see what I'm going to be at. I mean, I grew up looking at Arnold, looking at these bodybuilders, you're looking at all those physique models, I mean, we grew up with the time of disease. And by no means is that like a proper model to look at, but that was a great body to look at. And that was one of the few people where I looked at it and I go, oh, maybe I should start going to the gym properly and taking it serious. Can I look like that? Not attainable by any means, say naturally, for a lot of these things. But I think I have that mindset where I just want to keep progressing and changing and improving each time. I think I'll never necessarily be hungry, or I like to say I'll never be hungry. I don't know for definite, right? But I think each time I go through an investment phase and then cut down, don't get me wrong, I like the way I look when I've cut. And I think, wow, that's great. I didn't think I could look like this. But I always in the back of my mind then go, but can I look better? Can I look bigger? Can I get heavier? And can we come back even leaner than before?
Maybe that's what it's all about. This is all about self-mastery and continuous improvement.
Yeah.
And when you hit that new checkpoint, it's never like, okay, now I've arrived now, right? It's not, I've arrived. Because if you get into the mindset of I've arrived, you're probably just going to slowly revert back to your old ways. You've got to start thinking, what's the next checkpoint?
Yeah.
How do I get better? What can I refine in my system?
Yeah.
How can my structure be better? What's the next checkpoint here? And I think if the more you can embrace that mindset, the more you'll carry over into other areas of your life.
No, definitely. Yeah. I think, like I said, that mindset as well, yeah, it carries into other areas of your life, but also I think it's just to stop yourself reverting back to how you were before, you definitely need to be thinking this way. And it doesn't matter whether it's a short-term goal or a long-term goal. You could have gone through that process, gone through the investment. You're now almost in a reward phase, right? And that can be a long-term reward phase if you want it to be, or it could be a long-term investment phase. It can be a short-term investment phase. It doesn't matter, but you do need to have some sort of goal, I think, at the end, because I could come out of this, I could go, look, I look great. I'm happy now. I'm not happy, don't get me wrong, but I'm comfortable that I can just set a long-term goal for the next year, 2 years. For the next 2 years, I want to slowly build a bit of muscle. So I still look good. I still look in a very good shape, but I know I'm slowly building muscle. And that means that it's not a case of I'm not doing anything.
Yeah.
Still doing something, but it's a much longer term goal. And that can fit so many people's lifestyles. I think we get into a mindset where very early on, we just want to see quick fixes. And it's almost like by seeing a quick fix, you get that reward, right? Which in your mind, you feel so great because you've rewarded yourself, because you've made and you've reached a goal and you've ticked it off. But is that necessarily the best way to think? In the long term, probably not. If we keep setting ourselves really short-term goals, it's almost like you're jumping ship to ship to ship to ship. Whereas there's going to need to be a period where you need to have that long-term investment, that long-term goal, to really have a proper reward at the end of it, I think.
Yeah, if you want to actually fundamentally rewire yourself and change your mindset, your behavior, your identity, if you want to change those three things, which is what makes up being in the shape of your life for life, you have to take that long-term approach and completely get rid of that quick fix mentality.
Yeah.
You know, one thing we touched on is consolidation, and that's a tough one for many, especially when you go through the grind that I put you through last summer. If you approach you, I mean, that condition you got into was no joke, and you're pretty nasty all around.
Yeah.
Especially in your legs were feathering.
Yeah,
you did pretty decent shape, and
I didn't expect the legs. Like, don't get me wrong, I know I necessarily didn't send those photos to you with my legs always on show, but I'd look in the mirror and I could see the legs that were there, and I was like, oh, they're good. But I didn't actually, until we got into that photo shoot stage, and I saw some of those photos as we were doing. I'm like, geez.
None of the pictures you sent me let me know what you're really looking like, because they were always such like faded out pictures. Really in the morning of, I was like, he's actually way leaner than I thought he was. So I told Gina to go get some Haribos, remember? Because you came in and you were still flat. And I was like, he's really lean. So he needed like sweets to pump him up. But then as you got on during the shoot, you just started getting more and more fuller and vascular. Yeah. That's when it all started getting really nasty. But after coming out of that, your head space is all over the place. How do you ground yourself into a solid consolidation, and you don't just rebound after that? What are you telling yourself, and what approach are you taking?
So look, for that, at least in that scenario in particular, I think I was lucky in the sense that I'd kind of gone through a consolidation phase before, right? So you had already produced a lot of articles and podcasts as well related to consolidation phases and the mistakes we can make. And so having read that, and in the back of my mind knowing if I rebound as bad as I think I can and know I can, this is just going to look horrendous and I'll have wasted so much time. So the one thing that kept going through my head is I've spent so long getting to this stage where I've never felt this good in my life, never looked this good in my life, right? I've spent so many hours doing that. That cut and that Vigela grind was, like I said, absolutely disgusting. And I've never felt so worn out at one point. And in my head, I was like, I've done all of this. I've put in so much effort and so much work. Like, do I really want to, do I want it for a short-term reward, a little bit of self-gratification, ruin everything I've just worked so hard for? And I just constantly kept thinking that. Don't get me wrong, that I definitely did treat myself a bit, because in my head I thought, yeah, I've earned it. So I think I went out for a meal that night and I was like, I'm just not going to think about it. I'm going to relax. I'm not going to think about what I eat that one night. Fine, I'm just going to do for it. But I think you remember as well, I even messaged you probably the next day going, right, can I go to the gym? Can I go do my list? Can I carry on? I just want to maintain in that sense. I don't want to be, in my head I was thinking, I don't want to lose it. And because of that mentality, I knew when I was going into that consolidation phase that mentally I was prepared to just listen and be told what to do and not cheat, knowing that if I did, I would probably actually get into a position where I can enter an investment phase, but also just enter a phase where I can allow myself then to have those kind of smaller rewards, little bits of food that I wasn't necessarily going to be treating myself to yet. If I wanted to go out for a drink, I could go out for a drink. I tried extremely hard to not get into that mindset of, it's fine, it's just it's a one-off, I'll treat myself, because I know from my past as well, what that could lead to. I think I could have quite easily just gone straight to literally any fast food place, bought everything on the menu, sat down, eaten it all, felt great. Don't get me wrong, I would have felt phenomenal for about 10 minutes. And then afterwards just felt absolutely sick with myself for having done that, but probably also just physically sick because I've eaten so much food that my body has not been eating that amount of food for so long. I think it's important for you to just remember that, yes, getting to photo shoot stage or getting to the end of your cutting phase, which for most people is one of their goals, right? is a reward in itself, definitely, but it's not the end. I think a lot of people, like I said, might think, oh, I've got to that stage. This is the end of it. Great. Let's leave it. I'm happy. I'm going to go off now and do whatever I want to do. But that's where that rebound happens. You just need to understand that even if someone doesn't want to go through an investment phase, that's perfectly, that's their choice, right? But if you don't go through that consolidation phase, then you're just going to rebound. So you need to understand that consolidation phase is so important to make sure you can maintain a resemblance of what you look like. You're not going to look shoot ready 24/7. No one can. I mean, that is by no means healthy, and you probably feel like the worst person in the world 24/7. But I think for me, it was that mental understanding. I don't want to lose what I've just worked so hard to gain. And I want to, as I said, I also thought I want to progress again in the next stages. So I knew if I went into a consolidation phase and did it poorly, that's going to impact my investment phase.
Yeah.
So for me, that was, again, really important. But
and then a couple months later, well, actually about 6 months, 7 months later, I remember you checked in and you were like, I'm now the same body weight as I was at the peak of my investment last year, but I look way different. Which one? Sorry?
That photo, looking at that, yeah. Looking at it side by side with the previous investment photo, that, I think, what was it, 158, 156?
Yeah, 158. So if you guys want to see, if you guys listeners who want to see this, go click on the show notes and you can see Tom's case study. And there's a picture there you'll see of all six pictures, and you compare the investment to the reward investment and just look at the difference in the pictures at the same body weight, how different his body composition is.
Yeah, that was just, seeing that side by side. When I messaged you and I saw it, I was like, how is it like, firstly I'm thinking, how is that even possible? Like, I would have always thought, same body weight, you're probably going to be the same sort of composition, but it just goes to show that even going through that massive, first having gone through that investment phase before, then going through the cutting cycle to get to that reward stage, to then going through the next investment phase, I think it showed just how much muscle I had built up, but you don't necessarily realize it at the time. And it's only when you then compare after two of those, within two of the same types of phase at the same body weight, just how much of a shift there has been. And again, that was like a mini reward for myself. I was like, oh, great. Clearly I can push even harder. I can get even bigger. I can do even more.
Yeah.
And we're going to come out of this looking even better.
Amazing. Now that you've been in great shape for close to 3 years, what have you learned about yourself?
An interesting question. I think, as with probably a lot of people, we put a lot of stock into our self-image, right? And that also, like I said, transfers into everyday life with the confidence and whatnot. And it's definitely true for me. I've always put a lot of importance, self-importance, on the way I look and how I feel. And for me, those two go hand in hand. And it's probably not a great mental shift to have or mentality to have whatsoever. But for me, that is it. I think, and I definitely know that when I wasn't looking good, I just felt terrible. I didn't feel confident. I didn't feel good in myself. I didn't feel good about anything. But as I progressed through the stages, that confidence built up. But also, I think just the knowledge and understanding that I can actually follow something through and see it through to the end, which is always good to see. You learn things like just being able to dedicate yourself to one bit almost. You're multitasking, you're, like I said, following it through. It's not like I was only spending every day in the gym and doing nothing else. I was working, I had other things to do. I was still had technically a social life until I was going through that peak week when there was no social life. But I think, I could probably not put as much stock in the way I look, but that's probably not going to change, to be honest with you. We live in this kind of world, especially so ingrained with social media and pictures of everyone.
Well, I think when it comes to that, what you're trying to get at really is that the body, my opinion is that the body is a representation of your mind.
Yeah.
And if you let yourself go physically, there's probably some things you're running away from. There's a void you're trying to fill, whether it's by food, whether it's drugs, alcohol, whatever it may be, poor lifestyle choices, sedentary behavior, TV, all these things. And that's going to reflect on how you look. So if there's things going on in your mind, it's going to reflect in your body.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
And I think that's what you're trying to get at here, in that you've managed to create that control and focus in yourself. Yeah,
definitely. I think, look, this whole process, I've definitely gained a lot of self-control in every aspect, really, right? And just control over my life altogether, which has been great. And I think I know that I can still carry on doing everything I'm doing right now, and it's not going to impact my other aspects of my life, whether it's my work, whether it's my personal life. Everything's integrating now, which is great. And again, like I said, seeing the physical changes in my body has impacted my work life, and for the better, for definite, right? Yeah. And it's just improved loads of things related to that. And I think the ability to focus on work, the ability to actually just get things done, see things through to the end, like all of that just ties in really nicely for me.
How have you integrated it with your social life? Because a lot of people think you can't have a life if you look after yourself and pay attention to your health and fitness. Yeah. But how have you managed to integrate it so that you're still attending social events, still going away, you're going on stag do's, you're planning a wedding, etc., and you're not losing the fun element from it? How are you approaching that?
Yeah, I think it is hard, especially when you're just starting out, to have so many social events and going through this process altogether. It is definitely hard. When I first started out, I did think to myself, can I afford to be going to these things? And do I have enough self-control to make sure I'm not going to slip up? And that's what it really comes down to. It's really your self-control. And I think what your why is for even doing this process, you need to have a really strong why, at least for yourself. Doesn't matter what it means to anyone else. But as long as your why is strong for you, I think you're going to see those changes, and you're going to help stick to it more than, say, a weaker why. I don't want to say weak because it's not necessarily weaker, but compared to something else. So for me, having a strong why internally, and again, being results driven, I knew that I can still go out, have a social life. I just have to have that self-control. You know, if I'm going out and people are drinking, look, if at the end of the day, if I'm going to have one or two drinks, I'm going to probably let you know that I've done that. So there's just, again, that full accountability. But also it'll be a question in my head, do I really want to be doing that? Is that going to impact me negatively or positively? Do I even need to do that to just have fun? Can I not just go out with people, not drink, and just enjoy myself? And it got to a phase where I could do that. I think before all of this, maybe you probably think to yourself, oh, you know, everyone's going out, we're all going out for drinks. You need to be drinking then to be on the same wavelength as everyone else, and just, you know, be part of the group and have fun. But really, you don't. It is just a mindset, right? Going out for meals as well. That's a bit of a tough one, sort of. I mean, I think if I was going to go out for a meal, I was always conscious of what kind of food, what was I going to be eating, and do I need to potentially create a buffer for myself? You know, do I need to maybe increase the amount of steps I'm going to do like the days before and the days after to even just allow for it? Do I need to have that meal? Again, it's always a big question. Is there somewhere I can go that is a little bit more manageable or cleaner in that sense? I don't think you can't not have a social life by any means. It's just, it really boils down to your self-control and your understanding of why you're doing this and what you want to attain, and then how going to a party, going out for drinks, going out for a meal is going to impact you. What sort of impacts that will actually have on your ultimate goal.
Yeah, we call it the art of saying no. Yeah. It's essentially just taking charge and being a leader of your own situation, whether it's your social group or your relationships, and just taking charge and saying, here's what I want to do, here's where I'm going, or this is what I want to, this is how I want to act at this place, and just being okay with that. You know, it's not falling for that peer pressure, not falling for social norms, and just living a life that you want to lead. And what you end up finding is people end up following you, and other people get inspired to do similar.
Definitely, I think again as well, when you initially start off with this, you're probably, and I know loads of people touch on about this, is that you're going to get comments and remarks. You know, why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. Oh, you're losing too much weight. You're looking skinny, or you know, you don't look healthy. I think we see that a lot. You don't look healthy. You look ill. It's like, for me in particular, you might think that, but obviously from a blood work perspective as well, I was a lot healthier than I'd ever been, right?
Yeah.
And you get those comments all the time, and you get those comments throughout that entire process. And then you get to the end result, and then people see that result in person, and they see you. And then a lot of times they're like, those comments kind of just die away a little bit, especially with, say, family and friends who do see you as a person rather than pictures on the internet where someone who doesn't know you is just looking at a picture and going, yeah, you look ill. With family and friends, they're like, yeah, oh, you look great. How did you do it? like, how do I do it? Who do you do it with? Like, what do I need to do? And then people start asking for advice as well. And that's fine. You can give some information, but ultimately, they have that mindset change as well. And that, I think, it's important for people to know that you're probably going to get a lot of commentary throughout this entire process.
Yeah.
And it's not probably going to always be positive commentary. And that's why, again, it comes down to your why. And as long as you know what you're doing it for, right, and why you're trying to do this, then you just have to almost put everyone else's viewpoints aside, separate it from your own, and know that at the end of the day, you're going to come out of this looking incredible, and you're going to look great, and you're going to look the way you want to look, and you're going to be happy with the way you are. That those people's comments, shouldn't mean anything to you anymore, but they're probably actually going to change as well. That their mindset is going to change and become a lot more positive towards you, because they'll see all the benefits this whole process has had in your everyday life.
Amazing. So on that note, what's next for Tom?
Well, I think from a physique perspective, look, I've always said to you, I want to compete at some point just to try it out. So this is my way of giving myself a little bit more accountability, chucking it out here. Obviously, initially I said, maybe let's try to do it for this year, but then I got engaged, and that kind of put a spanner in the works in a positive way. And then COVID-19 has also put a massive spanner in the works for everything. So with a wedding next year, I don't know if I can even push myself to a point where I could manage my work, everyone else's weddings at the same time, and try and get into a position to compete and not feel like I'm just wasting that process. I think I'm also in that mindset where if I want to compete, I want to actually try and compete to win, not just compete to get myself on stage, but actually try and really go for it. So that maybe, let's say 2022, go through 2021 in a kind of good investment phase. 2022, we come out and see if we can compete.
We'll have to do it together then. 2022 is when I want to do it next.
Yeah. Maybe we can see if Charlotte Minnow on it as well. I think 2022, it could be.
Turning 30 and all that.
Right now, I haven't got any. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Geez, yeah. Right.
Yeah, you turning 30 in 2022 as well?
Yeah, I'm 28 now, so 2 years.
Jeez. Yeah. Mark it with that.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing to do, actually. Yeah.
First show of the season.
That might be it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any parting words for the listeners?
Look, I think if you're on the borderline of thinking, do I want to do this? Is this the right thing for me? What I found in particular with you and RNT as a team, right? You guys have so much knowledge, so much experience behind you. We are so open and friendly to communication, whether there's someone who's already part of it or someone who's just looking for more information. I think it's always important to reach out via the right channels and ask the questions that you're maybe anxious or you just don't know about. And then ultimately, if you decide to do this or you're going through the beginning steps of your journey, remember that just power through, keep going at it. The more you put in, the more you're going to see out. If you're already in your journey and you're almost getting to that mental shift where you're like, what do I do? Am I going to be able to still see results? Are you almost stalling a little bit? It's the same thing. Listen to your coach, listen to the experience they've got behind them, and just persevere. And look, at the end of the day, you will see the results. It is ultimately accountability, and what you put in is what you're going to see out of it.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on, Tom.
No worries, man. Cheers for having me.
Thank you so much for being here today on this episode of RNT Fitness Radio. I'd love for you to do a quick little favor for us. Please head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating, leave a comment, and share it with your family and friends. If you're interested in learning more about how to transform your body and positively change your life, go to www.rntfitness.com and explore all our free content on offer. Thank you.